all the way up to Topanga. The radio cranked out a super surfing marathon, all commercial free, which seemed peculiar until Doc realized that nobody who would sit through this music teacher's nightmare of doubled-up blues lines, moronic one-chord tunes, and desperate vocal effects could possibly belong to any consumer demographic known to the ad business. From this display of white eccentric binge behavior, only once in a while, mercifully, would there be a departure. Pipeline, and Surfin' Bird by the Trashmen, and Bamboo by Johnny and the Hurricanes, singles by Eddie and the Showman, the Bel Airs, the Hollywood Saxons, and the Olympics. Souvenirs out of a childhood Doc had never much felt he wanted to escape from. When are they going to play Tequila? Dinas kept wondering, till just as they were pulling up the drive of the Board's rented mansion, on it came, the Spanish modality and flamencoid roll strokes of the surfer's sworn enemy, the low rider. Tequila! Screamed Dinas as they slid into the last parking space. The house had once belonged to half of a much-loved hillbilly act of the 40s, and currently the Boards were renting the place from a bass player turned record company executive, which trend watchers took as further evidence of the end of Hollywood, if not the world, as they had known it. Like girls at Hawaiian airports, a couple of house groupies named Bodie and Zinnia came forward with leis, or actually love beads, and put them around Doc's and Dinas's necks, then led them off on a tour of the place, looking at which a less tolerant person might think right away, wow, this is what happens when people make too much money in too short a time. But Doc figured it depended on your idea of excess. Dogs came and went, some reasonably calm, others obsessive-compulsive, bringing you back the otherwise ordinary rock you had been throwing, farther and farther away each time for the last half hour. It's his trip, man. And now and then one fallen afoul of that breed of human that finds amusement in feeding a dog LSD and watching what happens. Doc went stumbling through his city dump of a memory. Oh, sure. Dimly. It had been during one of those prolonged times of no dope. Nobody had any. Everybody was desperate and suffering lapses of judgment. People were opening up cold capsules and laboriously sorting the thousands of tiny beads inside by color, in the belief that each color stood for a different belladonna alkaloid, which taken in big enough doses would get them loaded. They were snorting nutmeg, drinking cocktails of Visine and inexpensive wine, eating packets of morning glory seeds, despite rumors that the seed companies were coating them with some chemical that would make you throw up. Anything. One day when Doc and Shasta were over at Sortilege's house, she mentioned this Ouija board she had. Doc had a brain flash. Hey, you think it knows where we can score? Sortilege raised her eyebrows and shrugged, but waved a go-ahead hand at the board. The usual suspicions then arose. Like, how could you be sure the other person wasn't deliberately moving the planchette to make it look like some message from beyond? And so on. Easy as pie, Sortilege said. Just do it all by yourself. Following her instructions, Doc breathed himself deeply and carefully into a receptive state, letting the tips of his fingers rest as lightly as possible on the planchette. "Now, make your request and see what happens." "Groovy," said Doc. "Hey, where can I find some dope, man? And, good shit." The planchette took off like a jackrabbit, spelling out almost faster than Shasta could copy an address down Sunset somewhat east of Vermont, and even throwing in a phone number, which Doc promptly dialed. "Howdy, dopers," cooed a female voice. "We've got whatever you need. And remember, the sooner you get over here, the more there'll be left for you." Doc figured he'd be likely to run into Bigfoot out at the Waste to Perp target range, down off South La Brea. For some reason, Bigfoot liked to use civilian ranges. Had the LAPD 86'd him from cop facilities? Were there too many colleagues looking to shoot him down and pretend it was an accident? Doc wasn't about to ask why. He went out to the range after supper time, as soon as it got dark. He knew that Bigfoot preferred the urban, gang-related, and hippie, UGH, section, where full-length plastic images of black, Chicano, and long-haired menaces to society came lurching at you on a 3D shooting gallery type arrangement while you blew the suckers to shreds. He walked her down the hill to where she was parked. Weeknights out here weren't too different from weekends, so this part of town was already all a hoot with fun seekers, drinkers, and surfers screaming in the alleys, dopers out on food errands, flatland guys in for a night of hustling stewardesses, flatland ladies with all too grounded day jobs hoping to be mistaken for stewardesses. In the last pocket of darkness, before the glare of Beachfront Drive, they came to a pause, a timeless pedestrian gesture in these parts that usually announced a kiss or at least a grabbed ass. But she said, "Don't come any further. Somebody might be watching by now. Call me or something. You never did let me down, Doc. Don't worry, No, I mean really ever." "Oh, sure I did. You were always true." It had been dark at the beach for hours. He hadn't been smoking much, and it wasn't headlights. But before she turned away, he could swear he saw light falling on her face. The orange light just after sunset that catches a face turned to the west, watching the ocean for someone to come in on the last wave of the day, into shore and safety.